Fasten your seatbelt. I am taking you for the ride of your life. I'm going to show you what this car can really do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
Go get him, kid.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Not a tumor at all.
F? What you're going to ask me. So you can go ahead and ask me what you're going to ask me. And my natural response could be to get offended.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right.
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making.
I don't really know what's happening here. I just see Pat on the camera. Like, there was a gingerbread man. Was that a nativity sheep?
That was a nativity sheep. The nativity,
okay,
it gets reset. Like my kids each have in their mind how it should be set.
Yeah.
And so it gets reset. So I'm just,
there you go.
It's sitting right over here.
There you go.
There's a ginger man right over there. Okay. Gingerbread man.
Do your kids try to sneak like other action figures into the nativity scenes?
No, we kind of put the kibosh on that one.
Okay.
But successfully put that one. But no, it's like there's discussion of where the sheep should go, where the angels should go. To be honest, they set it up this year, so I have no idea where the three wise men are.
Okay.
They've got till the Epiphany to remind me because, you know, they're not there yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're traveling. So there's I think there's one above me on I don't know.
Okay.
Up there, there's one on a shelf. So they got the wise men all, you know, they're traveling.
I think I tried to sneak in an Obi-Wan Kenobi action figure as like a fourth wise man one year.
And who shut it down?
I don't know. I think it just ended I think I put it there and then it just magically ended up back where it was supposed to be, down in the basement.
Yeah.
So I don't know who moved it, but you know, you do what you can. Try to keep things fresh. Guys, it's 1992.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
So if you're listening to this, it's 2022. Don't let Pat's timeline of it not being, you know, Christmas yet or anything like that confuse you. It is exactly. The new year.
It is the new year.
But when will then be now is the most important question. This time around, however, this is our first episode of 1992, and our first episode for this new year is Lethal Weapon 3. We do spoil the movies we talk about, so this is your only warning. We are also members of the Scene Stealers Podcast Network. This episode is sponsored by them, and if you want to grab any celebrities for your Comic-Con or event of some kind, head over to scenestealersglobal.com. And then after that, you can go visit our website, 30podcast.com. You can leave a rating for the show. You can leave us a voicemail. You can become a co-executive producer via Patreon and get bonus episodes and help out the show. All that good stuff you can do at 30andthewordpodcast.com. I have with me this time around Patrick Canagala. Pat, how you doing?
I'm good, John. Doing fine. I'm trying to find the mute button, not grab the mic like you taught me last year. So it's taking me a fine time to get the mute button. The mute button. Oh boy, it's going to be one of those things. It's going to be a while till I can talk. Yellow leather. I
couldn't tell if you were saying the word button or mutton. I didn't know if you were stuck back on the nativity sheet.
I don't know. Okay. I don't know. But Happy New Year. Super excited to talk about this movie. And it's good to be in 1992.
But let's talk about your big butt, Simone.
What year is that one?
Oh, we already did that one. That was 85.
No, but what year was it?
85, I think.
It was 85?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Did any of you guys catch, I think this was in early December, did you catch that Pee Wee Herman was actually guest DJing on some radio station. I kept hearing ads for it.
I did not.
He was a guest DJ for like a week on some radio station somewhere. I was like,
that's cool.
I want to go back and find it at some point. But yeah.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
And he was kind of, from the ads, what it made it sound like was he was going to do this guest DJ thing in his Pee Wee Herman persona. But it was but it was going to be like the type of music that, Paul Rubens likes, is kind of what it made it sound like, but he was going to do it as Pee Wee Herman. So I'm like, all right, I'm busy now, but that's just weird enough. I'm going to have to go check that out later.
Yeah, I wonder what he likes.
It said Pee Wee Herman, a wacky character, is DJing a one-time radio show on member station KCRW in Santa Monica, California.
Okay.
That was what it was.
Okay.
So it was back in November. I don't know when it was.
Oh, November. Okay.
November 21st is when the article is, so maybe it didn't take place.
Okay.
But,
all right.
yeah.
Well, the other dulcet tones that you're hearing there is Dennis Matuch. Dennis, how's it going?
Good. How you guys? Happy New Year.
Good. Happy New Year. So let's see. This being the first episode of the year, first episode of the month, we're going to hop in the DeLorean and we're going to go back to January of 92. So this month in 92, some of our top news stories. Let's see. January 7th of 1992, AT&T releases the video telephone.
Oh.
Did any of you happen to purchase a video telephone back in 1992?
No.
Anybody want to guess how much the video telephone would have cost you in 1992?
Oh.
3,000.
7,000.
Oh,
You're going more?
lower than that.
Okay.
3?
2,000.
3,000?
2,000.
You're getting closer. $14.99.
$14.99. Oh, okay.
Oh,
There must
okay.
Uh,
be a special.
I remember seeing advertisements for that when they brought out the video telephone, and I was like, Star Wars will be happening soon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're at the point where Star Wars is going to happen. This is like 2001 when they talk to each other on the video screens.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty cool.
Why can't we just have cool Star Wars stuff like TIE Fighters and Millennium Falcons?
And holograms.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And lightsabers.
Lightsabers would be cool, man.
Yeah, just like a phone with a little pop-up screen. I don't even remember that. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Things that are less amazing and a little more gross. On January 8th, let's see who remembers this one. January 8th, George H.W. Bush gets ill and vomits on the Japanese prime minister.
Yeah, I remember when that happened.
Yeah, I do.
I remember that, and I remember Saturday Night Live making fun of it, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
January 16th of 92, Eric Clapton performs for an episode of MTV's Unplugged at the Bray Film Studios in Windsor, England. Recording won 6 Grammy Awards and became Clapton's best-selling album and the best-selling live album of all time.
Well, there you go.
And then January 30th, inventor Ray Kurzweil publishes his first book, The Age of Intelligent Machines, on artificial intelligence and predicts the popularity of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Because the internet's this thing we use every once in a while.
That's right.
Let's see. Top sports for 92 on January 12th. The highest scoring NCAA basketball game, the Troy State Trojans defeat the DeVry Hoyas 258-149.
There you go.
Oh, like 258-149. The basketball game was basically just one of those arcade basketball games where they had like five basketballs and you just keep shooting as much as you get. That, I think, to get to that score, that's what you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Top book was Scarlet by Alexander Ripley. I feel like that's been the top book for the last, I don't know, half a year so far. Every time we've done these this month in whatever year. Top movies for January of 92 were Hook and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
Okay. All right.
And then the top songs, Black or White by Michael Jackson. And I think in the last week of January of 92, All for Love by Color Me Bad.
Oh.
All right, our movie this time around is Lethal Weapon 3. It came out the 15th of May, 1992, rated R, with a runtime of 1 hour, 58 minutes, directed by Richard Donner, who passed away just last year in 2021. He also directed Superman, the movie, and Lady Hawk, and The Goonies. Producers for this one, Richard Donner and Joel Silver. Donner produced Scrooged and Maverick, And Joel Silver apparently was able to foresee the mind of Pat Canigallo and produced every movie that Pat loves, such as The Matrix and Die Hard.
There is no more complete than that.
I feel like you and Joel Silver could be best friends.
I could be his best friend.
I could see
based
you
on his movies.
I could see you standing at his door, ringing the doorbell in like true Halloween trick-or-treating style. He opens up the door and you're just like, "Hi, I'm Patrick Canigallo. I'm your density."
That's right. That's right.
Writers for this one were Jeffrey Boehm, who died in 2000, Robert Mark Kamen, and then Shane Black. Boehm did Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and Inner Space. Kamen did Taken and The Fifth Element, and Black wrote Iron Man 3 and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Cinematography was done by Jan de Bont, who did Speed and Minority Report. Editors for this one were Robert Brown and Battle Davis, who died in 1994. Brown did Flatliners and A Man Apart. Davis did Frankie and Johnny and Awakenings. Hey, you know what, Pat? I bet if I was the editor of Flatliners, I bet I could do it in 4 minutes.
I bet you I could do it 4.5.
I bet I could edit that movie in 4 minutes and 52 seconds.
Well, wait, if we're editing it, do we want to edit it faster? Did I go the wrong way?
Yeah, you want to edit fast.
I know, but
I went the wrong way. I'm sorry.
No, we're trying to, I don't know.
I messed it up, man. That Flatliners thing, though, I don't know. That was weird.
It was my understanding there would be no math.
Part of my problem again with Flatliners was I spent half the movie thinking it was a comedy and that I just didn't get it. And I think that's what kind of threw me off my game.
I would love to go back and just be sitting with you in the room while you're watching it, thinking it's supposed to be a comedy. And at what point, why did you think it was a comedy? I guess I'm sure I asked that question, but
well, it was the comedy month. We were like, it was like July was the comedy month, and this was the first one of August or something like that.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I was like, okay,
this is not funny.
And, well, yeah, about partway through when people started dying, all that kind of stuff. But at first, the premise is kind of funny, let's kill ourselves to see what's out there. I was kind of like, that's kind of funny. I mean, I felt bad. I thought it was a little dark. And then when they got into that whole thing, well, I'm going to kill myself for 5 minutes and I'm
just picturing you sitting there going, wow, John's sense of humor is really dark.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I like some dark stuff. This is kind of funny. I mean, these guys are kind of comical. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's not funny at all.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. It's not meant to be. And then it all dawned on me. And then it was like, oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
It was a good movie. I mean, it was a really good movie.
Yeah.
I think it was a good movie.
I'm confused. I don't know why John picked Flatliners and Human Centipede.
Yeah.
Human Centipede for Comedy Month. That doesn't.
Yeah. What am I missing? I mean, oh boy, the good old days.
Apologies to the listeners. That is two episodes in a row where we have referenced Human Centipede, and I'm going to stop now.
Mm-hmm.
Something you need to tell us.
No. No. I've actually never seen that movie and plan to never see that movie. And it's many.
One of those where the description is plenty.
Yes, and it's many sequels.
Synopsis is nauseating.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Music was done by Eric Clapton, Michael Kamen, who died in 2003, and David Sanborn. Clapton did the music for The Story of Us. Kamen did the music for X-Men. Sanborn did the Lethal Weapon movies 2 through 4. Budget was $35 million. Box office was $321.7 million. Flick Metrics gives this one a 61%, and CinemaScore gives it an A-. Starring Mel Gibson as Martin Riggs, who's in Braveheart and Ransom. Danny Glover was Roger Murtaugh, who is getting too old for this stuff, but he was also in Predator 2 and Angels in the Outfield. Joe Pesci, he was Leo Getz, and he was, in Goodfellas and Raging Bull. Rene Russo was Lorna Cole. I almost messed up her name there. Rene Russo was Lorna Cole, and after talking with Bo today, possibly in his dreams.
But how could you not? I mean, holy buckets. A little heart goes pat at that one.
That was the first thing when I was talking with Bo earlier today. I happened to go see him over at the high school, and I was talking to him, and he said, I can't. okay, I wasn't going to pick on him, but I am going to share this a little bit. One of the things that we kind of, I'm just going to say me, I picked on Bo for is long time ago, in one of the first years of the podcast, we were talking about a Rocky movie, and Bo was making a comment about his favorite part was the wax on, wax off scene. Because we were recording, Rocky and Karate Kid, I think in the same recording session. It was going to be two different episodes, but it was the same thing. And he made a comment that we were all talking Rocky, and suddenly he says the wax on, wax off scene was one of his favorites. Yeah. And so for years, I have made fun of him for that. So thankfully, he was not on the recording this time, but he and I are talking, and I said, "Yeah, I'm. That's too bad you're going to miss the Lethal Weapon 3 one." He's like, "I know, like that was such a great movie. Like it was, Chris Rock. I thought he was a great part of that movie." And so he starts going into that, and I was like, and this is why I'm not going to make fun of him for it, because before I watched Lethal Weapon 3 for this episode, in the back of my mind, I was like, I think this is the one with Chris Rock. Isn't this where they introduced Chris Rock? And then I started watching it. I'm like, where's Chris Rock? He's not here. I don't know why Chris Rock isn't here. I thought he was in this movie. So when Bo said that, I was like, no, I'm going to stop you right there. This is definitely not a wax on, wax off kind of thing. I thought the same thing, but, Lethal Weapon, no, that's Lethal Weapon 4. He's like, well, then who did they introduce in Lethal Weapon 3? And I said, oh, that's when they introduced Rene Russo. And it was like, all of a sudden he was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So would you like to call the love line and share more? It's like, no, just, yeah.
Yeah. So. I share Bo's sentiment. When I think of Rene Russo in this movie, it's kind of like Wayne's World when he sees Tia Carrera. Dreamweaver. Yeah, I know. That the Dreamweaver song just comes on, and it's like slow-mo Rene Russo just beating everybody up.
Does Monica Bellucci know about this, Pat?
Pardon me?
Does Monica Bellucci know about this, about your feelings?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my eyes, yeah.
I feel like Pat is sitting over here going, she makes me feel kind of funny. Kind of like when we used to climb the rope in gym class.
And without jumping ahead too much, I thought that was such a fun part of the movie is you could tell like from the beginning, she kind of made Martin Riggs do that from the beginning too. Yeah. Like when he makes fun of her and she like crosses her, like those little things, he's just like, oh, what was that? Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So let's see. We got lost, as may sometimes happen. We got lost.
Dreamweaver. I'm going on mute.
That's fine.
Well, the video is off. I'm still singing.
You're good. All right. Now that we've distracted Pat with Rene Russo, she played Lorna Cole. She was in the Thomas Crown Affair, which made me want to join the chess club. And she was also in Thor. Stuart Wilson played Jack Travis. He was in Hot Fuzz and The Mask of Zorro. Steve Kahan, or Kahan, maybe however you say that, was Captain Murphy. He was in Demolition Man, one of the other movies I'm looking forward to. That's next year. I think is 93. He was also in Timeline. Darlene Love played Trish Murtaugh. She was in The Christmas Chronicles Part 2 and Holiday Rush. Tracy Wolf played Rhiann Murtaugh. She was in the Lethal Weapon movies. Damon Hyans played Nick Murtaugh. He was in The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. Ebony Smith played Carrie Murtaugh. She was in Family Matters for several episodes. And Sven Ole Thorsen played Henchman Number 2, because he was like Henchman Number 2 in every movie that's ever been made where you need a tall, burly henchman. He was in Gladiator and The Running Man. Veteran police detective Roger Murtaugh is only days away from retiring when he and his tough partner Martin Riggs are roped into an important internal affairs case. Working with the beautiful, no-nonsense Sergeant Lorna Cole and aided by the shifty informant Leo Getz, Murtaugh and Riggs begin to close in on a black market weapons operation involving corrupt cop and arms dealer Jack Travis.
I'm thinking we should cut the blue wire.
Hey, wait!
What?
That's not what I'm thinking.
What, do you think maybe the red?
No. I'm thinking that it's 8 minutes and 42 seconds. We can go upstairs, wait for the bomb squad. Have a cappuccino.
I'm cutting the red wire, okay?
Help! Oh!
What?
A minute ago you said blue.
Nearly a catastrophe, huh? I'm cutting the wire. Snip. See? All done.
Rog. Yeah. can't.
They're back. Lethal Weapon 3.
Hiya, Hubie. Hey, we're looking for a friend of yours named Travis.
Hell, I've never heard of him.
Wrong answer, wrong answer.
Wait, I'll leave my car here and I'll come with you.
No, you're not coming with us.
Yes, I am. All right, I'll take my car then.
No, you're
yes,
not.
I am. I can't believe you did that. I got a spare in the trunk. I'll fix you. They're my partners. I can't believe they did that.
She has the right to remain silent.
Freeze, police.
I want you to see something, Rod. She has a gift. What's this?
Hey, you okay, honey?
I just ran.
Hey, at least it's 5 of them, man.
Yeah, I know.
My girl.
I never made it with another sergeant before.
Shut up, Riggs. Hello, car 54, where are you?
The only thing they do contribute is mayhem and chaos.
No, I'm chaos and he's mayhem. You have the right to remain unconscious. Anything you say ain't gonna be much. Back to bed. Back to bed.
All right. How does this movie make you feel, Pat?
Great. It just makes me feel great. Joyous rapture. These movies are so fun. And I was watching them just like, oh my goodness, these are just fun. And I mean, yes, violence. And I mean, there's some, especially in this one, there's some scenes and some stuff that, I mean, could easily be painted in a different, more somber, serious note. But this is like, I don't know. I mean, they're movies in the vein of the 80s action movie, and they're intended to be fun, and they're fun.
Yeah.
Interesting. And it's, we always ask that question. Could a movie like this been made and done well today? And I don't know. I mean,
we don't have senses of humor anymore.
That's the thing, well, because you're dealing with cops, you're dealing with violence, you're dealing with overreach, but then you're also dealing, it's interesting how it could have been. But yeah, I think you described it pretty well. I mean, it doesn't. I'm sure we'll get into like where it maybe ranks with the 3, and does it still work, and is it different, and how's it different, so all that. So yeah, I think you described it pretty good.
I'm going to say, how does this movie make me feel? I'm going to say that this movie makes me feel, I want to be careful how I say this. This movie makes me feel like I want to go watch Lethal Weapon 1 and 2. Like, I like this one. It's funny. I still like it. I like all the Lethal Weapon movies. I would happily sit back, spend an entire day, and watch 1 through 4, and I would be very content, very happy, very entertained. However, there are a few things in this one that I'm kind of getting into one of our 3 questions already about how I'd rank these. This is, I'm already going to kind of spoil this one and say, this is probably my least favorite of the Lethal Weapon movies. Now, that's kind of like saying, what's your least favorite piece of chocolate cake? I mean, it's chocolate cake, so it's all going to be good, but this just happens to be my least favorite piece of chocolate cake. For this one, just going a little bit more in depth on why it makes me want to go back and watch the first one is I feel like this one, some of the humor, like some of the parts that were so funny in the other ones, they just did not hit as funny for me in this one. I mean, this one's still got great action. It's still got, Pat, you and I were talking about some stuff earlier today. It's got, it's got the motorcycle chase. It's got the armored car chase. It's got the bomb diffusing scene at the beginning. It's got the whole thing at the end where they're burning down all the houses, and you're lighting the truck up by shooting your automatic weapon into the puddle of gasoline, and it's got all those great parts, and I love all those great parts, and it's a fun movie. At no point in time am I ever bored with this movie or not entertained by this movie, but it is. I think there's a couple things about this one that bother me more than in any of the other ones. Leo Getz, there are very few times in this one where I think he's actually funny. He just
really,
he just kind of gets on my nerves in this one.
Okay,
like I thought he was funny in the others, but for some reason in this one he just doesn't seem as funny. I'm not laughing out loud like I would in some of the other ones. Some of the banter back and forth between Riggs and Murtaugh, it just doesn't quite hit for me the way it does in the other movies. I think that this one in particular, you go back and look at the original Lethal Weapon, and I don't think I would call the original Lethal Weapon a comedy. It's an action movie, but it's got the witty banter. It's got, the little, the quippy one-liners. It's got that kind of stuff, but it's not a comedy movie. And I feel like this is the one where they kind of took the comedy too far. Like this is much more a comedy movie that just happens to be a movie with cops, trying to figure out this whole conspiracy that's going on within the department and all that. So for me, my two biggest things, and then we can get into like talking more about the plot of the movie and everything else. Probably my two biggest things is I felt like the comedy was trying too hard in this one and taking over where it probably shouldn't have. And I didn't like the villain. Like I thought he was very forgettable. And I remember hearing, actually, I think it was Siskel and Ebert. I think I had watched a video of their review of this movie. And that was the point that Siskel was making, was the strength, when you look at an action movie, the strength of the action movie most times is in its villain. And so if you don't have a good, compelling villain, then, your action movie is going to falter for it. And this one, compared to the other Lethal Weapon movies, totally forgettable villain. So I, like I said, I enjoy the movie. I love the movie. I will watch the movie. I like all the Lethal Weapon movies, but this one for me is probably my least favorite, and those are my reasons why. Is I think they tried too hard with the comedy, more of it than there needed to be, sacrificing the serious part of the plot, and then the villain. Just he was the most forgettable of Lethal Weapon villains.
I would probably agree. Yeah, and I think both. It's one of those things where I think two things can be right or two things can be wrong. It's saying however you want to look at it. But I think that's a consensus that this one lacks any character development. It lacks a good villain. It lacks, and it's not that he's a bad villain. He's just not a good villain, like a great villain. Like you said, I had actually, when I was rewatching this, I was confusing it with the villain in the second because I remember the second villain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And therefore I was like, wait, who is the villain in the third one? And I go, oh, okay, now, all right. Yeah, it's this guy. Yeah. And I was watching, I'm like, wait, does this guy get killed early on? And I'm like, no, actually he's the villain throughout the whole film. Like that piece was one of the most forgettable things, having not seen this film probably from in its entirety back in the 90s. It was probably the last time I saw this all the way through, was sometime early 90s. Like I saw this in 92, obviously. This might have been a theater one for us. I believe it was. And then probably saw it on HBO a couple times, maybe, throughout the 90s. But yeah, the villain was the weaker part, but it's relying on the formula. So it's very formula sort of, it's got your, like you said, your bomb scene at the beginning. It's got lots of action. It's got the humor. I agree. There's some things where they went a little bit too much on the humor. But at the same time, it's a fun movie. And like you said, if you like cake or chocolate cake, it's like, okay, well, this cake is better than that cake, but it's still chocolate cake. So yeah, there's some things I really like that they did. And then there's, like you said, there's definitely Joe Pesci's character. You don't really need him, but I think he was such a big hit in number 2. You had to bring him back in some sort of way. And how could you bring him back? Oh, as an informant. It's it's filmed well, and in some ways I like some of the acting better than, I would say some of the acting, I like some of it better than I do like the other. It's a weird movie though, in terms of like trying to like break it down. I was trying to, because I'm like exactly where you're at, where there's things that bother me about it, but it's still fun watching. So and sometimes I have it more fun than watching the first one. So to me, 2 is my, we'll get to that question later, but I think 2 is my favorite. And I think 1 was still finding itself. 3 had found itself and just repeated itself and resorted to, like more action, and more funny stuff. And 2 is kind of that Empire Strikes Back sort of feel for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, this might be where some of this comes in too, because 2, I mean, 1, I might say, well, let's see. I'm probably going to say 2 is my. Well, we're going to rank these later for the 3 questions, but
Right.
Yeah. So,
but 1 and 3 are similar, close, because there's things I love about it. So it was hard for me to decide between which was the second one.
Yeah.
And there's things that when I watched 1, I'm not going to say I wasn't entertained. I still loved it, but there's so much. This one, you don't get a break. It kind of keeps going.
Yeah.
There's never a part where there's a lull or anything like that, I feel like. And then you got Rene Russo, and this one is a strong plus. Yeah. So I said there's a mixed bag of all, but it's a weird, Yeah.
So I wonder if Pat, this is like you and I were talking earlier today. I wonder if this is kind of along the lines of, you said this one was your gateway into the rest of the franchise.
Yeah.
And for me, the first one I saw was Lethal Weapon 2. Like that was my first entry into Lethal Weapon movies. So for me, I mean, that usually tends to be, when I think of favorite Lethal Weapon movies, it's probably going to be 2.
Same for me. I saw 1, 2, 3 all in a row. So I'm like in proper order. I think because I'm the oldest person here, obviously. And but yeah, seeing 1, 2, 3, it was like, like when you watch Star Wars, the original Star Wars, like we're talking like the New Hope and Empire and that. There's a certain sort of weird like everything in like I feel like Return of the Jedi is so polished. And the characters, the film, everything looks like good, clear quality, and they're like just everything. And this has that. And The New Hope has, when you watched it, it was amazing, but there's also some limitations there. And there's some, not cheesy acting, but obviously some spots where it's like, oh, a little bit, and I think the same thing. It's sort of like they were developing itself, and 1 and 2 are more new and interesting, but taking chances. And 3 didn't take any chances; it just relied on formula. Not saying Jedi necessarily did that, but it just has a polished look at it that I don't know, just like they're doing it. Like the action scenes are, exciting action scenes. I'm like, I think I don't know.
They transition into the action scenes, kind of in neat ways too. In the third one, like it'll be all of a sudden you'll get a comedic scene, like when the guy's jaywalking, and all of a sudden like another thing unfolds, right? He's getting the he's standing there while Raj runs into the store and he sees Brienne like getting jumped, and it's like, so it's interesting how they transition like from nothing like into one of those scenes, at the beginning. I think that's pretty cool. Cause later on, then they're going to things where they're like rolling up on a place where they know the bad guys will be there. Right. Yeah. But like at the beginning of the movie, it was like, bam, we're into an action scene. They just kind of fall into it.
Yeah.
And
but did they know? So I'm curious about that though. Did they know that was another thing I kept thinking of is, wow, these guys just happen to be in the right place at the right time a lot. And I mean, it's a movie, it's a fictional movie, so that's fine. But like when they were the traffic cops, it just happened to be that everything's going on in front of them.
Right.
And then later on, and maybe I just am remembering this wrong, when they're at the food truck and he's making the burger and everything else, did they know that there was going to be, did they know that they were going to see that red sports car and get in the middle of that shootout and everything else? Or did they just happen to see it go by? I don't know. There seemed to be several times where I was like, this movie is filled with coincidences. Like the way the movie is made is, I'm not sure it would even work unless you had all these massive coincidences that, oh, look, they just happen to be, because what city are they in? Are they Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Los Angeles, I think, is a much bigger city. I don't know that you're going to just happen upon all these crimes just because you happen to be there,
And Joe Pesci happens to know that guy.
Yeah.
Remember seeing him somewhere.
Yeah. Which again is fine. I mean, it's a Lethal Weapon movie. I'm not expecting it to be.
It's like a roller coaster. You're going to an amusement park. You're not looking for substance. And I don't necessarily think they had to deliver the character development, because I know that was always a big criticism from anything that I had seen or heard on it. A lot of people criticize, like, oh, it doesn't have any development of character. And I'm like going, but they had 1 and 2 to do that. We already know who they are. They're like family to us already. Like family to each other. Right. You need to. The only thing you're really playing on is like could you have gotten more serious with that whole, 7 days left, which they bring up enough, but is there more of a heart? And the boat scene tackles that a bit.
Yeah. And they almost flip it on the head. Roger's the one that's on the ragged edge.
Yeah.
Riggs is the one that's kind of like,
there's some topical things. He ends up shooting some young kid. It's somebody his son knows. It brings up questions of guns and about, what police go through, what society is dealing with, what the young people who have lost their way, it does. So the question is, because it tiptoes into those waters a little bit, should it have gone more serious and really explored them? Or is it enough to keep the action and humor and then just touch on those things a little bit so you're getting a little bit of everything? I mean, some people might fault it for that. Some people might say that that's the best, that's what they liked about it. So,
well, and I would be interested to see what the kind of the reviews of the time were saying, because, we just watched Boys in the Hood last year. And so now this, and is it kind of a, hey, ripped from the headlines, this is kind of what's getting out there now into the mainstream, so we're going to incorporate it into our action movie.
Well, and I don't think it completely takes a stand either.
Well, and I don't even think it.
Even the family of the kid who gets killed, who's the friend of his son, the woman slaps him, but then the father says, "You get the guy who put the gun." Like they weren't really against him. It's like the mom was just grieving, so she slaps him. She's feeling the pain of that. But then at the same time, the dad's kind of got that ability to say, "You get the man who put the gun in my." I don't blame you. You put the man who put the gun in my son's hands, type of thing. There's like that. And even the son says, "I don't blame you." I think is the line when he's shaving.
Right.
And he goes, "Dad, I don't blame you. I blame I forget who the character was who got shot. But anyway, he blamed his friend. And
again, we're dealing with an action movie where you can have a little bit of that in, but we need to get back to the action piece.
Exactly.
Right. And I mean, that's kind of what you see is it's them taking action, and because there's a definite bad guy that they're going after, right? Like they're not they're not going to delve into some of the issues that you saw in like Boys in the Hood or, some of the other films like that. They're not going to start what was that?
Not Crash, where it's getting into the whole series. And not that Crash, right. I'm saying like where it's going to explore all these topics in very deep, thought-provoking ways. It's just going to touch on them because they're part of that reality. They would have to be, but we're not going to dive in, and we want to keep this a fun action film. But we also want to know that those moments exist. So I think it tries to do everything, and therefore some might argue that that's the enjoyment of it. You get a little bit of everything, but some people might then say from a critical standpoint that that's the weakness, is that it doesn't take a stand or choose to do one, become more serious or become just comedy. Like, what are you? Like, what is it? How would you, what genre is this? Is it a comedy? Is it action? Or is it drama?
Yeah. And it doesn't.
A little bit of both. Yeah. And that's okay, I guess, my point be. But does it come off as a little disappointing for some people? Yes, if you wanted it to be one of those three. But if you're okay with it being a touch of those three, then it works and it's fun and,
Yeah. See, and I like I said, I mean, as an action movie, I think it's pretty incredible. I mean, you get these incredible chases. You get the humor that works, and whether it's a comedy or not, it's almost like watching the Marvel stuff. The humor works in those movies, even though they're not comedies. Like the humor works in this series. You get the action sequences. the Rene Russo character, a strong female co-star or whatever. I mean, you know, it really, like I said, that character really works.
The one I've seen that, you know, obviously.
Oh yeah.
It makes you think back to Jaws, but at the same time now with a romantic twist, it's almost like what would be like a game of strip poker almost happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and I'm just gonna real quick for the action pieces, a little, I don't want to say hidden gem, but I think I will, for lack of a better term, a little hidden gem of a motorcycle chase. I mean, I don't think of Lethal Weapon 3 as a motorcycle movie, but you know, when he hops on the police bike, which that's just funny. He's just like, police, I need to take your bike. Oh, are you kidding me? This is bull, man. Hey man, I'm taking your bike. Call it in and give me your clips too. I mean, so he just basically runs up to the guy. I'm taking your bike. I'm taking your magazines for my sidearm. And that's just total action movie fare. But the shot where he takes off on that bike and accelerates up the road, that's a really powerful is the wrong word. It's a kinetic shot. I mean, it's like there's a, you know, it's a powerful shot. And then when he comes on the road and he turns across, like his turn on the bike, the camera's looking at it and he's coming at you and he turns onto the road and he's got the bike leaned way over. And so, I mean, it's an exciting motorcycle chase. You know, the duck down where the windshield comes off, that's, you know, fun Lethal Weapon kind of stuffish kind of thing, but you got some pretty cool things. So anyways, I think the action pieces are good, you know, and I mean, you know, like I said, the mainstream culture, no, I want to take that back. I don't want to say mainstream, but I mean, I think like, you know, the other issues, the gang violence thing was becoming more known. I'll say it this way, more known in communities that didn't necessarily deal with it on a daily basis. You know, that I think we were becoming more conscious of that. And like I said, either through the music at the time, or the movies at the time, or just people talking about it, you know, like that thing. But you also had the idea of the armor piercing bullets, because wasn't that when there was it Ice-T had a song about that?
Yeah, the cop killers. And
yeah. And so that whole thing was going out. And I mean, you know, so
volatile times back there. I mean, again, I'm 21 at the time, and I remember this movie coming out. And I wonder if part of the reason, you know, I wonder if the script got changed. I wonder if they toned it down. I wonder if they, you know, had to do, because this was also after Rodney King, and you know, Rodney King, I believe, was 90 or 91. So, you know, they had to be probably. You have to toe the line when you're doing an action movie. Yeah, so maybe that's why it didn't have that super serious tone, so that it didn't get mistaken for making some statement that it didn't want to make or wasn't willing to make at the time. I don't know. You know, it'd be interesting to hear what the thought process was, or if any of those. I believe the riots were they 91? The LA riots?
Yes.
I can look that. I mean,
yeah, March of 91.
That's when the riots were?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought that it was all within that year. I know Rodney King gets pulled over, that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, police brutality, overreaching. I'm sure they had to be careful, and you know, and sometimes that's just like in 24. I think of that like with the series 24.
Mm-hmm.
It sometimes the good guys can feel or seem like the bad guys in order to catch the other bad guys, and therefore to become, you know, I don't know, you know. But like him beating up even the director. You know, like it's a funny scene, but at the same time, in reality, that guy doesn't get for that job. That guy's suing his ass.
Yeah, it does kind of go clang, right? I mean, it does. Well, and like anything, you know, and and again, I'm sure there's some people that would maybe object to this, but I think, well, honestly, I think the guys on the Friendly Fire podcast, one of them, was it Adam Pranica said it, that, hey, I think we can enjoy movies and love movies, but I think we owe it to look at them with a critical eye and to, you know, to analyze, hey, how does this sit? What's the message? You know? And I think
that scene's a hilarious scene where he's running.
It's a great scene. It's
great scene. And then he fires her, and it's like there should have, was there a better solution to her either getting her job,
right?
Than him literally physically assaulting the guy to get the job back, because then that makes sense.
But I mean,
force it back in, and and it sort of, that was a scene that kind of like was hilarious. But then that part kind of ruined it a little bit, where I'm thinking, and I know it's funny, but at the same time, like, you're always thinking, like, here's the bad rap on police, is like they're using their power to influence, bully somebody, and that's in case what he does here. He basically beats the guy up to get him.
And again, it's presenting
his eye and like going, and doing the Three Stooges thing, but at the same time,
did the guy have a bruised eye? Did the guy have? And here's the point with that. Again, they present it too, and this could be the thing that you could fall on either side of the coin. Oh, it's just harmless action.
Yeah.
But then, okay, what is that? When you talk about desensitizing people, then you suddenly think, oh, well, the consequences, I mean, there are no consequences of that. I mean, he slugs the guy in the face, I mean, you're going to.
I'm like, the center thing, if I saw that, I'd be thinking this guy's
I was just about to say, Dennis, you've been punched in the face a lot. But I mean, like, you're a boxer, right? You're a fighter. So, I mean, you get slugged in the face. I mean, it's not like, oh, now we're good. And again, and I don't want to pass judgment and say, oh, well, because then you got the other thing, then you got the cancel culture thing. And where did we go with that? But I think it's good.
Like, I guess that scene like that, like, again, I think that shows where it's interesting, because the beginning of that scene and what actually happens, and finding out that it's a film set and she's filming a thing, it's like hilarious and you're laughing. And then it kind of ruined it, because they tried for more comedy with him getting it back that way, and that fell flat. Kind of like what John was alluding to, is there certain ones that fell flat. And I remember thinking as I watched it that scene fell flat. It was like, you just get something really good, and then you kind of ruined it. Just put a little bit.
Well, and I mean, even like the jaywalking scene.
Yeah.
I mean, that was funny.
Until he pulled a gun in his face.
But they make it, but then that's the thing is, when you're in the action world, it's like, and they talk about this in Last Action Hero, which we'll talk about, and I don't want to totally spoil Last Action Hero. So there's your thing, but Last Action Hero, okay, you've been forewarned. We got to get to a place where every gunshot wound is a flesh wound and everything is this, I mean, and so it's like, you can kind of paint that narrative, and yeah, that's where, I think got to be careful. I think we just got to be careful. Like, and it's funny, my son is getting to the age that, he might be getting into some of these movies. But honestly, it's funny. Like, he has like very little interest in real life, like live action kind of things, unless it's like Jurassic Park. He loves Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, all that. But, like, we watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Dominic's like, wow, Dad, this is really violent. And he's like, I don't know if I'm liking this. And I'm like, oh, it's okay, man. Do you want to shut it off? And he goes, no, let's keep watching. And like, and he finally, at one point, he looked over, and Dennis, your line of live your life like your kid is going to be watching and asking, you have is standing right next to you.
Future son or daughter is right next to you. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and Dominic looked over and goes, why are you enjoying this? About Raiders. And I mean, I'm just like,
go to your room.
Yeah, and that was my comeback was, well, Indiana Jones I think he's pretty cool. And Dominic's like, yeah, but I mean, do you enjoy that? And it's kind of like,
honey, do we still have those adoption papers we started to draw up?
Well, and in all fairness, like, and then it made me say, like, okay, so what I'm basically telling my son, like, and I believe it, like, violence isn't necessarily the answer, and all this kind of thing. But then now we're watching this, and then it's sort of like, well, yeah, but I mean, okay, so they're the bad guys and they're the good guys, like, so there's ways to, but then am I justified? Like, it gets into all those questions, which, that's kind of a
Pulp Fiction.
Pardon me?
Wait till you watch Pulp Fiction with him.
Yeah, I know. I know. But anyways,
wait till John watches Human Centipede with.
Yeah, I know.
Nope.
It's like the time you came in after watching Reservoir Dogs and just like you're watching Reservoir Dogs and you're just like, man, I didn't remember all the F words and all this kind of stuff. I thought it was just violence. Let's get back to, Walking Dead. Then we'll be in safe territory. But
do you think so, Pat? Do you think when he gets to Temple of Doom, will he be interested in the racial tensions in that movie?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, I'm sure he will be.
Well, and it's a and like you said, some of these films back then, and we're going even from the 70s, 80s, 90s, there was definitely a very pro-police, get the bad guy at all cost type of thing, that even if you bend the rules, it's the greater good to do what you need to do. It always makes me think of the speech from A Few Good Men, is it right? Yeah. With Jack, Jack Nicholson, and you need me on that wall. You can sleep at night because of the freedoms I provide. But then, that whole speech has, while it indicts him and basically does him in at the same time, there's some elements of some truth to that it's an ugly business. And does it have to be, or is that the realities? Are we naive to not think it is? I mean, when Jack Bauer saves the world because he tortured a guy, is that okay? Or is it better to not torture the guy and have everyone else die, because he doesn't stop the threat? I mean, there's those big questions that get arise. And I think during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, society was clearly on the side of the police and and the authorities and the army or whoever's in charge to do what you got to do to get the bad guy. And I think now we have this lens of really examining that, and how far can that go? And is that right? And what happens when they're wrong? Because they could be wrong. They're not always right about who the bad guy is, and what's the ramifications for that. So we have all those thoughts, and your kids are going to have those thoughts, I think, in their heads more than we did growing up, because we were part of that 70s, 80s, 90s. Your dad, I mean, my dad at least felt, a lot of the same way. And, it was like Dirty Harry. I mean, Dirty Harry was Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
And like he said, I do the dirty jobs that no one else wants to do because someone has to do them, because that's life and that's reality. And that's how it is on the streets.
Yeah.
It was kind of that message. And you recognize that, and you recognize that there is some truth in that. But is that something we want to celebrate, or is that something you just want to more quietly acknowledge, and to a certain degree, you're thankful for it, but at a certain time you're bothered by the fact that that's the way it has to be sometimes, or does it? I don't know.
So here's something I thought would have been really interesting for this movie, is particularly the scenes you get to where Murtaugh has shot that kid that was his son's friend. And I'm watching it this time. Of course, I'm watching it again. I mean, I've seen this movie a bunch of times. I'm watching it again in 2022. And that scene in particular, especially how he starts to get real torn up over the fact that, he has shot not only a kid, but he shot his son's friend. And in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, can you imagine if this movie had, keep the balance of some of the humor, but bring in that serious storyline? Because I think sometimes even when you've got a serious storyline, you've still got to put some humor in there to, kind of liven things up a little bit. Right. Or to couch some of it so people don't feel maybe as uncomfortable, and they can still connect with, or at least interact with the message in some way. I wonder if, what if for a movie in 1992, what if they had taken that and taken that story further than they actually did? Him really being torn up about having shot a kid, and his dad's comment about get the guy who put the gun in the hand of my son, and talk more about through the lens of the movie. All right, well, how easy was it? Or who put the gun in the kid's hand? And, I think there could have been other conversations that you opened up or sparked or whatever there. And it just, they didn't take it very far. You did see him a little bit torn up about it, but
it just is on the boat where he's drinking, and he's like, it's a baby, and you didn't do this. And then, that gets pretty intense on the boat with those two screaming at each other. And then it gets funny, so it's there's never enough serious. They were literally always kind of almost saying okay, we had 2 minutes of serious, we got 2 minutes of funny coming up.
Right.
We got 2 minutes of serious, we got 2 minutes, we got to keep it balanced.
Well, even
the best opportunity for that being seriously, exploring what did it do? And they do convey that to a certain degree. And I think it's pretty intense and pretty powerful, in my opinion, when Riggs gets like emotional about like how his retirement's affecting him, and and it really, all this stuff starts to pour out, and they're like literally slugging at each other and hitting each other, and it's like he's sitting there in tears because if I just killed the baby and you don't know, like you're not the one who did, you've killed bad guys, but I just killed a kid, like you don't get it, like you don't understand it. And he's like, F you, like how do you say that to me, like because they both have all this kind of pain, which police officers do, and
I mean, and Riggs was also.
It then goes into hey, like I slept with somebody I shouldn't have, like, and then they finish with the comedy where maybe you could have just kept that scene serious and not finished with comedy. I don't know, but it literally feels like they're almost saying, all right, watch the clock. Okay, we've got enough of serious. Got to throw in some comedy now, and maybe it would have been nice to sometimes finish a scene where you didn't have the comedy. I wonder where that would have felt like.
Well, and balance out, because I mean, it's a movie. The movie's called Lethal Weapon, and in all these movies, you've got you're spraying bullets everywhere. Yeah. But you also, I mean, I felt like there were certain portions of it, especially when you got to the point of them finding out that these bullets were the armor piercing the cop killers, and part of me was like, all right, so what am I supposed to be? Without it being too preachy, what am I supposed to get from this? I'm supposed to be terrified that these type of things exist and could threaten police officers who are defending us and doing, what needs to be done for that. But at the same time, it's happening in a movie where there were scenes when the buildings were burning down at the end. And I almost laughed at those, even though that I don't know that it was meant to be funny, that people running away from the fire were just like firing their gun up in the air, not doing anything, just like there were guys running and just shooting their guns up in the sky. And I'm like, what's the point of firing bullets there? Like, it's almost comical that's happening. I'm like, so what is my message here? Guns got in the hands of kids that shouldn't have had them. There are bullets that are too dangerous to be on the streets that are now on the streets. And yet the movie, and I don't want to say I'm not for action movies where you just like, fire a million bullets, at your enemy. I'm fine with those. I watch those all the time. But I just was like, I can't tell if the movie is trying to get me to think about something while couching it in humor and all these other things.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's guilty of the things that it wants me to think about, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Or it's just kind of a rip from the headline storyline. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, and then you see, you do see the young cop Edwards gets killed. He looks up to them, and and he, a little comment about the, be careful, like he's a cop killer bullets, whatever. And then he ends up, So, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. And like I said, I mean, I enjoy action movies. I enjoy watching these, but I just think as we go and as we age and as we, as the movies age, I think you got to have the open mind for someone that's going to say, why do you find this funny? Why do you find this entertaining? What element do you like, and realize that, just there could be someone with a completely different set of life experiences next to you that might not find it entertaining or funny or do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard.
Well, there's those questions that they have for you, and I get that, and it's like sometimes trying to explain that is makes us think too. And then, I always sometimes flip it around. I know it's a video game, but like sometimes you come back and say, well, what makes it so fun for you to play, Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto or any of those things that kids will often play nowadays? They're like your, first person shooter. And why is that entertaining? You're just shooting. Like interesting to see, well, it's just a video game, but you find it entertaining though.
Yeah, like my kids won't be playing it. Yeah.
Well, just wait a minute. I got into Call of Duty and stuff, but
I know what you're saying. I pulled off Mortal Kombat and I put the blood code in for Sega. We had retro game day, and I'm sitting there playing it, and they're like, "Oh, what did you just do?" I said, "Well, I pulled his head off." "Why did you do that?" "Well, I defeated him." "Oh man!" And they were on Zoom with their cousins. And they were like, and all of a sudden we heard, what happened? And what did Uncle Patrick do? Oh, he's pulling people's heads off by their spinal cords. Oh, and they were all like freaking out, you know? And it's funny. I'm just like, okay, my parents had the same reaction when I play that. My kids have the same reaction. Clearly I'm out of step. No, but I mean, I get what you're saying. It's, you know, it's, it does not take away, you know, like I'm not going to suddenly say, this is fun. You know, I did. What's my reaction? It's a fun movie. But when you get past that superficial level, there's some other stuff there. And jumping back to the comment that the father of the person that lost their life, or the kid that lost his life, get the man that put the gun in their hands. I mean, I get that. And yeah, that expands it like, okay, well, we can't just have the Band-Aid fix. But even that idea, okay, what's the situation in society that is allowing for the gangs and the warfare and like the questions asked in the end of Boys in the Hood, right? The you know, this many young African American males will be killed by gun violence, and here's the stat, you know. And do you get what I'm saying? Like even that, it's like, yeah, we let's get the guns out of their hands. Is that going to solve all the societal problems? And I mean, I'll throw this out there too. Let's get the guns out of their hands. I mean, you know, that gets into the whole Second Amendment debate and that whole thing, you know, which I'm not, you know, I'm not saying one thing or the other on that, but it's sort of like, why are those things even available? Do you get what I'm saying? Like I don't know that this movie is necessarily addressing those things. Maybe this movie is just introducing those things, you know. Maybe it knows its audience, and it's like, okay, they know the audience that's coming in here just wants to have, you know, I just want to see this awesome movie. But then they're just putting those little things in there that make you question a little bit, right?
It's kind of bringing them up or tackling them, but in a more superficial manner versus
right.
You know, it doesn't, you're not dealing with drugs the way traffic deals with drugs, you know,
right.
It's like, you know, the gangs and everything else, the way Boys in the Hood deal. Yeah, you're just not dealing with it at that deep of a level. But because your film is set in that world, you have to touch on it, but they could tread carefully and don't go too deep and don't commit to anything.
Right.
So that can, for somebody maybe watching it today, I think maybe that could leave them like wanting more, like you should have said more, you should have done more. Instead of almost making it comedy and fun and condoning and, you know, but at the same time, again, me growing up in that time period, I thoroughly enjoyed the film watching it, and you pulling for the characters, and you've known them for 2 films. You know, you know there's pain behind them, and you know that they're not perfect. And, you know, I remember I kept asking in the beginning of this one, I'm like, dude, he's got 7 days left. Why are you making him go for like, and that's comedy to a degree of like the funniness, but on a serious level going, man, if you care for this guy, you wouldn't be putting him at such risk. But then is it a subliminal sort of like he wants this partnership and he has nothing else, you know, in his life really, and it's his family and he wants this partnership to continue. So therefore maybe the excitement of the job is going to keep, you know, Murtaugh going. And you know, it's almost like he's not thinking, or is that maybe how he's just coping with him having 7 days left? You know, is there a death wish again with him, which has always seemed like he had, you know, in all the films, to a certain degree, his own little death wish, which they explored more seriously in 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2, where they explored it more seriously. You know, and here they don't completely do that. You just touch on it like slightly on that boat with some things, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And in terms of, it was a fun film to watch back then. I rewatched it. I would, you know, again, rank it possibly second, but maybe a third, you know, number 1 being 2 for me. And
well, we'll go. That's one of our 3 questions. So we'll get into that here in a second. I did want to bring up, I had pulled this up a little bit earlier. there was an article that I found talking about a study that was done in 2013 by the International Communication Association, and they wanted to find out why people were so attracted to movies that promised, quote, bloodshed, gore, and violence. And it was kind of a joint effort between the University of Augsburg in Germany and the University of Wisconsin-Madison to try to understand like why people are attracted, even people that would be politically against killing and guns and all these other things. Like sometimes those people tend to be the ones that enjoy watching movies with violence and bloodshed and gore even more than others. And so they did the study to try to find out. They're like, well, is it, you know, are these target audiences doing this because they want to, you know, they secretly want to recreate the violence, or are there other reasons for doing this? So, so they did this study, and it said here in this article, contrary to a previous study that suggested that people view violence to sate their hedonistic cravings of thrill and are thus willing to go through violence and aggression to achieve it, this study's findings found that people wanted to watch violent films because it offered two things: a sense of purpose and a chance to delve into the human mind. And I will say that maybe that's where this one falls a little short for me, because I don't mind, you know, I don't mind a violent movie. I don't mind an action movie, you know, with guns blazing and everything else. This one, the story was just not coherent enough for me to be able to sit back and say, okay, there's violence, but I get the reason for the violence. And I can laugh at some of these moments, even the violent moments. I can laugh at them because I know there's something a little bit deeper here that I'm trying to understand. I just watched, for the first time, I watched The Purge, you know, a few weeks ago. I'd never seen The Purge before. That was a tough movie to watch.
About the first one?
The first one, yeah. That was a tough movie to watch, and it was violent, but as I'm watching that movie, I'm watching it and I'm going, okay, I'm getting the story that they're trying to get me to understand here, like the underlying issues of, you know, the racism that's in it, the, you know, society, and good Lord, what if society were to end up like this? And, you know, right. And you watch things like that. You watch things like, The Handmaid's Tale. You know, you watch that series and you think, okay, yikes. It's like, they're showing me some stuff here. It's violent and it's reprehensible, but I'm also watching it going, you know, you see this kind of stuff and you think, if we just took like one or two steps in the wrong direction, would we be that far off from, you know, having some of these things be possible? So I tend to agree with this study that says, you know, even when you like the violent movies, that shouldn't just be an automatic thing to say like, well, you're a terrible person because you like violent movies, and, you know, you should never like that because people in real life get shot up with guns. And most times I feel like, especially for me, I feel like when I'm watching a movie that's particularly violent, I'm not there for the sake of the violence itself. Like the violence is just a vehicle to get across the story, to get across the psychology of the whole thing. Even when we were talking Evil Dead not that long ago, when we did that for our Patreon one, in those scenes in Evil Dead 2, and Evil Dead, when it's just the disgusting, gross out gore of the whole thing, I'm just laughing at that whole thing. But it's not because I'm some sadistic psychopath. It's because I know, just from things that I've read, other things that I've watched, like the technical skill that went into making that so gory and so gross, that's what I'm thinking of when I'm watching that. I'm like, God, I can't even believe like how these guys made that look so realistic, or what kind of material they used to make that so gross. That's what I'm keying in on when I'm watching this stuff. It's not the, wow, I wish I could do that to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of that's going to come up, you know, I watch these, like, my dad was he watched a lot, like I said, I don't know when we saw Dirty Harry, but I was young when I saw Dirty Harry. But I know that from a scientific standpoint, they say that there is, you know, back when I think it was when I had the personal well-being class, we looked into like all the stuff with violent video games, with violent movies, with violent content, and what it does. And I think what I remember from a lot of that too is it also does, there is a desensitizing effect to things. there is a cathartic thing to certain things, but I've always asked myself, I would again categorize myself as extremely nonviolent. And it's a weird thing of like, even with boxing where people are like, well, you're hitting this other person, but it's like, I wasn't hitting this person out of anger. You know, it was a competition. It was a test of will and conditioning and skill. And to me, the violent part is what turns me off to the sport, is when you see that there is really a fact that you could hurt a person, that you go, whoa, you know, and you back off. And I know, Pat, you've done martial arts, and, you know, I'm not sure if John's had anything like that, but some of the more non-violent people I know were boxers in real life, because you've mastered and kind of controlled it. You don't become obsessed by it. You know, like you say, you're not watching it for the violence sake. You're watching it for the, like, different, there's just, it's sometimes a difficult thing to explain, but for me, I know that like boxing has saved many people's lives. And it's a weird oxymoron to sort of say that, but the truth is it has. There are kids who had been in prison or dead or in gangs that was the only hook for them, unfortunately, in society. That was the only hook that got them off the streets and got them on a path of discipline and respect for an opponent and respect for themselves and training and conditioning. You know, and you hope that, you know, we used to say, like, you learn to box so that you don't have to fight, you know, kind of thing. And are there other coaches that aren't like that? Yeah, there's other people, and I'm sure there isn't anything. But I think watching even these films, I got that it wasn't, you know, like I said, I'm not a violent person, but I could see how if you're a kid growing up, so coming back to those studies, if it's going to lessen the effect of that part of your brain that, you know, maybe is sensitized to the violence, or like you should be a little upset by it. I mean, if I watch something extremely violent, I cringe a bit, where I'm like, this is excessive violence. Like even the Saw films and some of those things, and what was the Hostel, you know, where you're just almost doing it from a voyeuristic standpoint. To me, that's a big turnoff, because there's no story there, and what's the message? Right. The Purge, I did like the first one. The rest of them I feel have just more glorified the violence, or they still try to spin in a message once in a while. The first one at least had some value. I think the first Saw had some value in the fact that it was a guy who was dying of, you know, spoiler alert, you know, cancer. And he was basically really like in a sadistic way, but he was putting these people who had spoiled their life, or like taken their lives for granted, and putting in this game of like, how much do you really want? You know, there was a little bit of like some sort of message there that made the violence more palpable, because there was something there. But if it's just violence for violence sake, I usually don't. I kind of reject that pretty quickly. I don't want to just see violence and people just, you know. But if it's got something to it where you care about the characters, you realize that violence, unfortunately, is a part in our society. And I think part of that also made me less afraid of those things, or more prepared for those things to handle them. And if it were to occur, you know, hopefully you don't want it to happen, but like if it does, you would hope that you would be able to handle it in a more controlled, less violent way yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cathartic, sort of a cathartic experience versus yeah. But like, I literally, like, we grew up on these movies. We grew up on war movies, but I really, like, I understand the seriousness of war, and I understand that it's not a game, and I understand it. And we played, you know, guns and stuff around the neighborhood, and ran around and did World War II stuff. And it was like, you know, pretend grenades. But at the same time, I'm like, I would call myself a fairly big pacifist. And the only way that I would use violence is to save someone else's life, or a family member, you know, or if somebody who is a innocent person being assaulted or whatever. Like, I would kick into action there, but I wouldn't just for the sake of violence just pummel on somebody. You know, I don't get that part, but right. I grew up on that. So how do you explain that? And why do we have more school shootings now? Is it the guns? Is it, you know, because we could say we went through some violent movies back then. Are they more? I don't know. That's a big question. But
well, it's like I'm the odd person out of my Texas family, because I can't stand guns, and all the rest of my family, I mean, they've got they own guns, they shoot guns, they love them. You know, they've got whole collections of them, and I can't stand them. Like I went to a shooting range with my uncle one of the last times I was in Texas, and I was really hesitant to, you know, I think that they felt that they knew I was nervous around guns. I don't think that they knew that I really don't like them. But then they invited me while I was there. I was like, hey, we're going to go to the shooting range. Why don't you come with us? And like in the back of my mind, I was like, I really don't want to do this, but at the same time, I feel like I need to do this once just so I can say I have fired a gun. I know what it's like. So then when I go watch these movies, then I can kind of, even better, as an adult, I'm a very peaceful person too. Like I'm not going to go, I have no desire to like pick up a gun and get revenge on somebody or anything like that to live out what I see in these movies. But especially after going to the shooting range and firing a gun, especially the Magnum ones, just the force, it was terrifying to actually fire a real gun.
Yeah.
And so, for me, that solidified in my mind. I was like, okay, look, there are people that enjoy guns. There are people that want to own guns. I, as far as I know, will never be one of those people. I have fired a gun. I understand the power that is behind this particular weapon, and that allows me to respect it even more. And I want to have nothing to do with it. But at the same time, and that's where, you get kind of what might seem like a contradiction. I love these movies. Like I love Lethal Weapon movies. I love Star Wars. I love Rambo. I love Terminator. All these other movies. I really, really enjoy these movies. So it does seem like a bit of a contradiction. It's like, well, you hate guns, but you really like these movies where there's guns blazing left and right. Yeah. But I don't know if I enjoy the action, but I don't think I like the violence for the sake of the violence itself, like you're saying. Like if that's all there is to it, then that's not it.
It's like a slasher film. I don't like a slasher film because it's just a slasher film. You don't care about the characters. You don't care about the story. It's just somebody going around and murdering somebody and scaring people. What's the point?
Right.
But when you have a story and you have characters you care about, and there might be what you would call an evil or a violent villain, and the good conquers the villain, it's, you're pulling for that. And I think that also gives us somewhat hope and, like that the good person will out and win, even if sometimes it relies on them being violent to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, I don't think it glorifies it. Now, my question with this movie would be, again, getting deeper into it, like more than the movie intended to be, but did it still have a byproduct effect on young police officers growing up who thought, wow, you could kind of abuse the badge here and you could still be funny and you could still be the good guy, yet even though you might be trampling on someone else's rights or someone else's, just their health, punching somebody in the face that doesn't necessarily deserve it or pulling a gun on a jaywalk, like it's okay because Murtaugh and Riggs did it, and look at everybody loves them. Does that filter into that kind of, hey, that's the type of cop I want to be? I don't know. We may be saying that, but there might be enough police officers out there who are saying like, no, we're not that stupid. Like we get what they're doing is wrong. Like I would imagine there are, but could it have influenced some? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then where do you draw the line and where do you stop it in your media? Like then you go back to the video games. Does it influence? Like, I don't know. I mean, there's many kids who play video games and are totally harmless kids, and then there's some that'll go up and shoot up like in Columbine. Like how do we know what is and what isn't gonna trigger that?
Like hopefully nobody went to go see the Police Academy movies thinking I want to be a cop because of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think I would say I think any of those movies, like they say Top Gun, was the big recruiting kind of thing for the Navy. And I remember seeing this thing where they actually, no, I was talking to some sailors and they were like, yeah, like the joke is like, here's the Top Gun, here's the reality. And it shows the Top Gun. It's like they're flying the fighter plane. And then the reality is they're like scrubbing the deck and getting the rust off the ship. I would think that they're, Hollywood is still Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? And I think, I mean, I don't know. I remember people saying there was like an escapist thing. It's just fun to like escape into a simple world where there's good and evil, right? Like, and we can defeat the evil by because, we know that it is incredibly complex to solve these, societal issues that has to do with a whole host of things that can't be solved, and by going pedal to the metal or just jump for it or, like that kind of a thing. And so we like the escapist thing where we like that idea of the escapist thing where, hey, for an hour and a half, for 2 hours, I could check out, see a story and when I'm done, I go back to the real world, and that's that. I mean, I think that's, you know, when people say, and I don't know that I necessarily agree with it, but I think that people say that with sports, you know, where they'll say, oh, we just want to see people play sports. Like, why are we doing this or having this message? And, you know, people that complain about that, again, I'm not weighing in either side. I've got my own opinions on that whole thing. And, but I mean, you know, I think that's what people are saying. I just want to sit down and watch the game and not be reminded of the outside world. And again, like this, you have a movie that's very violent, and yeah, there's some very entertaining parts in it, but you got to be careful, because when you look at it with society as a whole, is that what we want to be turning a blind eye to, you know? And I don't think you can, you know, I'm not going to necessarily judge the movie one way or the other, but you just have to break it down and analyze it. How is this fitting in? How is this fitting in with my worldview?
Yeah.
And realizing there might be other people out there that this doesn't fit in very positively with their worldview. And, you know, and to have an open mind to hear what they have to say about it, you know? No, I'm just not going to listen. Forget it. I don't want to hear what you have to say. No, I want to hear what's, you know.
The reality is everybody, you know, because people are so complex and different, and depending on the age, depending on the upbringing, depending on your parents, depending on your values, your religious perspectives, all those things, violence and everything else is going to affect you differently. Sometimes you could watch violence, like I think, you know, you could watch violent acts and be more turned off about violence than ever. You know, like abhorred even more. It's like, you know, it's like sometimes drinking, it's like, how do you explain that? Sometimes a kid grows up in an alcoholic family, and the last thing he wants to do is have a drink because he saw everything that alcohol did to his family. And then the other kid, the same brother, grew up in the same environment, is going to be an alcoholic and follow the footsteps of the drunk dad or the drunk mom. Like, how do you explain why one does the other, and how like one had an anti-effect and the other one had a repeat effect? What are the factors that cause that? So, you know, I mean, we're getting all very obviously deeper than this movie was willing to get, but at the same time, I mean, it does in today's day and age raise some of those questions. What is the responsibility of film? How does it affect society? Is it a mirror? Did it reflect the values of the time, or did it shape the values of the future? You know, I don't know. I mean,
I do want to just point out, we did get super deep on Lethal Weapon 3.
Yeah.
This was the well. You can put that in the notes, like fun discussion, deep discussion, right? So people can.
If this part of the discussion wasn't fun, maybe that's why they didn't do it. They didn't go deep in the movie.
Well, yeah.
Maybe they didn't want people to hear that. Maybe things were so heavy back then that they didn't want, you know, they had to touch it, but they didn't want to dwell on it. I don't know.
And then have all the audiences just go, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Why are you putting this in there? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, that could be a thing. And I agree with what you're saying. I think the perspective, a lot of film that came out then was
that whole 70s, 80s. I remember Charles Bronson and the what do you call it movies? The
Death Wish
movies. I mean, like you were rooting for, you know, for that guy, because it was he was getting rid of bad people, you know, is what you saw as growing up. Like, you know, sometimes what was the most scary thing was the crime and the killers and those people who have no respect for life. So, you know, is that, oh, if we could eliminate them, you know, we all sleep better at night. And you're seeing a guy do that for you. Did it make people feel better? I don't know. But at the same time, you can look at and say, you know, what if he's wrong and he has the wrong person?
Yeah.
It's going out and killing people, you know, and then you run into those things. And you can look at the whole, you know, whole thing with the Kenosha thing. And, you know, there's things are more complex, and I don't know if in an hour and a half you can always tackle all those and solve them and make everybody happy. So sometimes I think it's safer to not dive into them for movies like this and just let it be an amusement park ride.
And like I said, you know, growing up, like that would just be the phrase is, you know, someone would say something, it'd be like, dude, I think you've seen too many movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like that, you know.
All right. Well, we've tried several times to jump ahead and rank the movies, so let's get on into 3 questions, and we'll actually get to rank the movies.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right, question number 1. Rank the Lethal Weapon movies. 2, 1, 4, 3. And probably just because, I really like the first one, but probably just because, Pat, like you said, 2 was my gateway into the franchise. So that one, to me, it's got some of my favorite. It's where I learned what Cougarans were. It's one of my favorite quotes that I use for completely unrelated things. It's just been revoked. Comes from that one. That's where I learned what diplomatic immunity was. I feel like I learned a lot from Lethal Weapon 2, and it had a great villain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's mine. Mine would be 2, 1 being a very, very close second place, 4, and then 3. What do you got, Dennis? You kind of mentioned yours a little bit earlier, Dennis. What were you saying?
Mine bounced around. My definite one is 2. So my number 1 is 2 for sure. That's I think a clear winner. And then I get a little murky because there's things about each of those other ones that I like that are like, wow, and sometimes I want to throw them together so that they make one good number, number 2. But like you have certain characters that might be in, I'm gonna go with 2. I'm just having the conversation now and exploring 3 a little bit more. I'm going to go 2, 1. I think almost what you did. Didn't you do 2, 1, 4, 3?
Yeah.
But 4 and 3 are close to me in some ways. I think they're relatively close.
Okay. Yeah.
Almost a tie. But I'll go 2. I'm going to bump 1 ahead of 3. Coming into this, I was almost 2, 3, but.
And when I think about it, part of my ranking, and I go back to what Gene Siskel said about action movies sometimes being based off the strength of their villain. And for me, that's actually kind of how I rank those others, how I rank the movies, because I always think of 2 as having the most memorable villain of the Lethal Weapon movies with the South Africans. And then 1 with Mr. Joshua, Gary Busey, and the general that was kind of his boss. And then 3, was it Uncle Benny? Was what the name of the guy that was kind of in charge of the triads? But at least I remembered them. And then before I even sat down to watch Lethal Weapon 3 within the last week and a half, I kept thinking, I don't remember who the villain of Lethal Weapon 3 is.
Yeah. And
that's probably why, other things we've talked about, but that's probably why for these movies, I think, even though I love all of them, I enjoy all of them, that's why this one probably gets ranked last, because just off the top of my head, I was like, the South Africans, there was Mr. Joshua in the first one, there was the triads in the fourth one, there was the what is the third one? Yeah. And I remember just sitting there thinking that, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. As I was watching, like I said, that guy get introduced, and I didn't recognize him as the villain right away.
Yeah.
Like it was like, okay, he comes in, but then I think they're going to get him, and it's going to lead to a different villain.
Yeah.
Like how often this is like one of the henchmen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking it'll be someone else. There's a bigger, it's going to trace him back, and they're going to get and kill and almost kill this guy, but figure out that he has a connection to somebody bigger. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's how much I forgot of this in terms of the villain. So I was like, as we're talking about this, so I was like, I really can't put that again in front of, 1 or maybe even 4, but.
All right. What about you, Pat?
That are great that I like. So it's just, it made it hard. But
yeah. What do you got, Pat?
1, 2, 4, 3.
1, 2, 4, 3. Okay.
Jet Li, man.
Yeah.
I would. I mean, yeah. 1, 2, 4, 3.
Yeah.
And I don't. And again, like, there's so much. Like the Rene Russo character is so well played and such a great character.
Yeah.
That really, I think, is the strength of the third one. I mean, all the beats are there. It's great. I just think some of the scenes are, just kind of go clang just a little bit.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I don't know. I was just going to say, I don't know if they have those same ones in 1 and 2, if they go clang quite as much. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's the violence, but I think like in 1 and 2, it's like you're fighting this organized bad guy group, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spectre, Cobra, some big organization that, we got to take down. So it's like the good guys versus the bad guys. It's easy to fall into a little bit more of the Star Wars thing where it's the stormtroopers all have helmets on. Do you get where I'm going with that? Like,
yep.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I think there's some things that, so yeah. And yeah, for the fourth one, yeah, man, Jet Li.
All right. Question number 2. If you were going to become a vigilante, what would be your lethal weapon of choice?
Lightsaber.
That's a good one. I could do that one too. A lightsaber. I actually have a different one, but I could go with that one as well.
What do you got, John? What do you got?
I'm actually going to drop it in the chat here if you want to take a look at it.
Ooh.
I have been trying to figure out, I did not dress up this year when I went to the comic book show. But I'm trying to figure out a nice, simple costume that's not going to be too complicated, but I could still do in the future. There was a comic that I really liked when I was a kid that was called Grendel. I don't know if you guys ever read it or saw it at all. And it's just like a real simple. He was kind of like a mercenary type character. Each of the different comics, it was like a different person and a different persona kind of took on this character. But one of the original characters, it was just like a black suit, like black shirt, black pants. He had these long white gloves and these long white boots. And he had almost like his mask almost looked a little bit like Venom's face. It had like the kind of the big white, almost Venom looking eyes on it. And he had this weapon that was called the Grendel fork. And what it was kind of like this long black tube, like a staff. And on one end was this like 2-bladed, almost like a fork type deal, which he could then electrify if he needed to. I mean, you could stab people, but then you could also electrocute them with it too. When stabbing, when you absolutely positively must kill every last person in the room, you stab them and then electrify them. And then the other end of his fork, like the back end of it, what would have been like the base of it, he could shoot out like a grappling hook or other stuff so he could, swing around or do whatever he needed to do. So it was kind of an all-purpose, the blades would collapse in. So if he wanted to use it as like a walking stick or something like that, or just, carry it around as like a staff, then it would. But the moment he needed it, blades come out, he's ready to go. So that would be, if I was going to be a vigilante and I needed a quote-unquote lethal weapon to use while fighting crime, I would use that one.
And that's I guess it's a fantasy weapon. Because I was going to ask you when you asked those questions too. Like I said, the first one came to mind was the lightsaber. But then if I thought in real life, in real terms, like what do I think? But then it's kind of like, what do you think are the cool weapons?
Right.
And it's not a gun. It would either be my next two that were based in reality or real life. Would have been either a like a samurai sword or a compound bow.
All right. Well, you do go with the lightsaber. That's for a more civilized age.
Lightsaber would be yeah.
It's an elegant weapon.
Yes, and it's also a defensive weapon too. So
yeah,
that's good.
Patrick, what are you arming yourself with?
I might have taken a wrong look at the question, John. I was gonna say superior strategy and tactics.
All right, that works.
I would say like what's our what are we trying to accomplish, right? Like are we trying to take down a rival vigilante group? Are we trying to fight off an invasion? Are we trying to invade? Are we trying to take a base? Are we trying to win the hearts and minds of people? You know what I'm saying? So like that, I guess that would be, and maybe I went too serious. Like, maybe I should have said like the sword from, but yeah,
See,
I think that's the first thing.
I thought your answer was going to be my hands.
I was going to say it's not my weapon of choice. I'm changing to Pat's hands.
But my answer was going to be Rene Russo. No,
Pat's
Pat's
answer was going to be, I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me.
Adamantium claws.
There you go.
But but I think like that's the first thing is like, what are we trying to accomplish? What can we accomplish? What's going to allow us to accomplish that? Right. Are we going to win this thing in one like epic battle a la Endgame? Or are we going to have to like, is this going to be long protracted and we're just going to try to wear whoever down? So I think
if you throw that out and you pick a actual real world weapon and read it differently now, what would it be?
So like throw out. Okay, so someone else is in charge and handling the strategy and tactics.
Yeah. So what Dennis is saying is that your original answer of a rousing speech is lame. So what would you do as an actual weapon?
Okay, well, first of all, before we go with that, like I direct you to the movie Patton. Watch the first 5 minutes of that, and then tell me that you think
Oh, I will. I'll see your Patton, and I'll raise you the middle of Independence Day.
I'm not.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
I don't know that that's a raise, John. We might want to make sure that we're playing the same game. Well, and I mean, I'm not saying like
was Patton fighting aliens?
What was that?
Was Patton fighting aliens?
Okay, well, I got you. Was
the entire world in danger?
Well, that might be,
human existence,
the survival of humankind. It's not just an American holiday anymore, Pat.
It's our Independence Day.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I'm not saying that I have, like maybe I need Hannibal, not Hannibal Smith. Well, maybe I need Hannibal Smith, like get that guy on your side. Okay, so you want like an actual physical weapon.
If you want. What do you like?
Is it a general purpose, like in case something comes up? Or is it like, what am I?
Someone's harming a neighbor, a friend.
Someone's harming a friend.
You have to pick something up to stop them.
A child is in danger and you're Batman.
Well, if I'm Batman, no guns, right? And
neither of us picked. Yeah.
So, and it's funny when you said that. Like my first thought was, I'm looking around the room. I'm like, okay, what do I got? Okay, I got a water bottle, bludgeoning weapon. Okay, I've got like, so picking something up. Pardon me?
One of the wise men.
One of the wise men that could go. Lamp over the head.
Anyway.
There's a bunch of cables over there, so we could have a, candlestick.
I got 3 wise guys over here I can use.
Yeah, I got 3 wise guys. You know what I mean? No, I would say, like the Wolverine adamantium claws would be pretty good.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know what I'm saying? Or the, the skeleton, but that would have to come with the healing factor. Do I get the healing factor, or is that kind of outside the bounds?
Yeah, whatever you want. In for a penny, in for a pound. You take the whole thing.
Lightsaber, so yeah, you can have that.
Yeah.
An Aston Martin DB5 equipped with machine guns in the lights, smoke, grappling hooks, all that kind of stuff. I think that would be a vehicle. The tumbler from Batman. Like if my neighbor had problems, I just want to be able to like drive through my wall, in through his wall, over the person that,
So driving.
I wasn't prepared for the question. I feel like
that's all right.
Lightsaber would be cool. The Millennium Falcon would be cool.
All right. Well, on a more serious note.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I dropped the ball. I was thinking,
That's all right. On a more serious note, and speaking of wise guys, number 3, who is your favorite member of the Three Stooges?
I hate this question. Just for the record.
Why do you hate this question?
It's Sophie's choice.
Oh. For me, it's easy. I'm Curly.
You're going to go Curly.
I'm going to go Curly. Yep.
Yeah. I plead the fifth on this one, man. I feel like any answer I give is going to be a betrayal of the other ones. Now, many people will say, well, throw out Shemp because everybody hated, like a lot of people didn't like Shemp. But see, I know the story, and I know the behind the scenes of what happened, and I have a newfound appreciation of Shemp. So,
I actually like Shemp.
Shemp filled in when Curly had the stroke.
Yeah,
that's when Shemp agreed to fill in. So if you think about it, it's like, do you just end the Three Stooges, or does Shemp keep that going until his brother gets well and he fills in again? Because he originally started. He originally was the original one.
Right.
I know that. And then he got into a fallout with Ted Healy, and then eventually came back, because of Curly having a stroke and stuff. So I don't hate Shemp. Mo is amazing. Curly's, all four, I think. I could tell you I don't like Curly Joe.
That's the one that
that's when we were like, I don't watch it. I see Curly Joe, I just skip past it.
Yeah.
I tried it. I couldn't. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to be Curly. Shemp never tried to be Curly.
Yeah.
Shemp was Shemp. And it's different. And it's like, all four of them, I think, are excellent and complement each other, that it's really hard for me to just pull out and say I have a favorite. It really is. Like, we loved the Three Stooges growing up. So I still love the Three Stooges, but I really can't answer this question without feeling betrayal of one of them. I'm going to just say yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I see where Curly's a fan favorite. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Man, Larry's got some good lines too. You can't see. Why not? I got my eyes closed. Hey now.
Okay, so here's a question. Because there was, see, I know in my mind there was Curly Joe, but I think as a kid I'm mixing up the two different Joes that came after Shemp.
There's Joe DeRita.
There was Joe DeRita and Joe Besser.
Yes.
And what name did Joe Besser go by? He didn't call himself Curly Joe, did he? Did they ever give him a name other than?
I think he did go by Curly Joe Besser.
Did he go by Curly Joe? Okay.
I'm gonna say he did. Let me see if I can find that one. He was kind of more whiny though.
I really didn't like him.
No, I didn't like either of those. Yeah, those were the worst too. He was like a whiny,
Yeah.
Did he go by? Maybe he didn't go by Curly Joe.
I was trying to find if he had like what his stage name was with the Stooges.
I think it just was. It's weird, Joe Besser.
Okay.
It's like Besser. Let's see. Refrain from imitating. He's an Abbott and Costello. See if it's not.
Well,
yeah.
If any of our listeners know this one,
yeah,
because I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember if he was given a particular name or. Yeah, no, my favorite was always the original Curly.
Yeah.
What about you, Pat?
I don't have any easy answers for this. I watched the Three Stooges, but not a lot. Maybe I'll say Larry.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't know if any of them match my personality, but I don't know. Maybe Larry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's tough because those three the 3 and the 4 all worked so well together. I mean,
Yeah.
It's one of those ones where you take out, that's why I think the renewed love of, like, if you would have asked me earlier on when we were first watching him, I will tell you that I was not a fan of Shemp, but I wasn't giving Shemp a chance because Shemp was the guy who replaced Curly.
Right.
That's how I saw it. Like, he took Curly's job. I hate Shemp because Curly was so great,
Yeah.
And then when you realize that they were brothers and it was like they were originally, and then you hear the backstory, you're like, all right, I'm going to give Shemp a chance. And once I give Shemp a chance, I'm like, oh my God, this stuff's funny.
Yeah.
But it was like I already had it in for him just because he replaced Curly. And I didn't know why you replaced Curly at the time because you were just a kid watching the shows. And then once you realize it, it's like, man, It's a cool story.
Yeah.
I always remember, with Mo, just like the glue kind of seemed to be the glue in some ways to hold that all together and make it work too. But lived the longest, and I remember he was at something, and he said one of his best moments was when somebody was doing an interview. He was at a college or something, and they asked if he could be, if the kid, somebody, whoever it was, wanted to be hit in the face with a pie by him. So you got hit in the face with a pie. And that was like the honor. I got hit in the face with a pie by
Mo Howard.
By Mo Howard, yeah. Hoi Polloi is one of my favorites. So I don't know which of your favorite, but that's one where they learn to be up the upscale society. Mm-hmm. And they're going through dance lessons and etiquette and everything. Yeah. And it ends with a pie fight at the end. So it's a good one.
I always liked, as a kid, I think one of my favorites was A Plumbing We Will Go.
Yeah.
There was that one. There was the
golf course one is good too.
Which one?
The holes are getting smaller because he was taking divots out of the grass.
There was the Disorder in the Court.
One of the few things I've ever heard, because I've heard the phrase growing up of "so's your old man," and it wasn't until the golf episode where I actually heard it on an actual show. The groundskeeper comes out yelling at Mo, and Mo's like probably walking down after he just dug all these holes out because he keeps hitting it. And then the guy says something to him in like a language, like the guy's an accent, and he just turns back and goes, "so's your old man." And then also appreciating that they did their stunts and they got hurt and injured, and Mo got broken ribs and still finished scenes, and really had a bad foot for a long time, and he was in pain a lot. He also, like, shaving his head, he was actually supposedly one of the more handsome of the brothers, but he had to play the stooge, and for the sake of the group. And it's just it's a really good dynamic and group, like story.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our first episode of 1992, Lethal Weapon 3. Let's see, what do we got coming up here next? We've got, for this month is our Crime and Punishment month. We've got our Patreon episode will be To Kill a Mockingbird from 1962. And then for the rest of this month, we've got Hoffa, My Cousin Vinny, and Passenger 57. And then next month is our Women in Film month. And our Patreon episode is Favorite Movies with Female Leads. And then for the rest of that month, we've got, in our regular episodes, A League of Their Own, Basic Instinct, Single White Female, Jennifer 8, and Sister Act. So we got a lot of good stuff coming up here right here at the beginning of 1992 for you. If you want to check out our website, 30podcast.com, we are at 30podcast on the social medias. And then don't forget to go check out the other shows in the Scene Stealers podcast network by heading over to scenestealersglobal.com and reach out to them if you want to get one of their celebrities that's on their list to come to your Comic-Con or event. But yeah, you go check out our stuff at 30podcast.com. As always, thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Pat.
Thank you, John. This was fun. Dennis, great seeing you.
Yep.
Getting super deep on a movie that's probably not really super deep, but you know what? We like to start the year off with a bang. So,
I see what you did there.
You see what I did there? Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to do it again. All right, everybody. Be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. We'll see you back here next time.
Bye.